In our last video, we looked at the Vitruvian Man, and we discovered that the powers that be must first create conditions that will make mankind adopt or conform to their policies or views. And by this, the whole world will receive the mark of the beast. But before we discover what the mark, sign, or standard of the beast or the papacy is, there is more that the Economist reveals to us as it relates to subduing the world and causing all to receive the mark of the beast. As we consider the Economist, there is great symbolism still to be revealed. And as we look closer, we recognize they were true to form and even copying the writing style of Da Vinci. He was left-handed and preferred to write backwards. But as we look closer, there are some figures that should be very noticeable. We see the current US President, Trump. We see the President of Russia, Putin. We see satellite-like devices, and even Pinocchio, to name a few. But I would like us to consider the words that are written backwards. And though it may be hard to notice, if the image is flipped, then things become much, much clearer. Now that the image is flipped, we can now read the words written. I would like us to take note of both the satellite-like devices, Trump, and the face that is obliquely opposite to Trump. As we consider Trump and the satellite-like device, we see the word New Horizons to Ultima Thule written. What is New Horizon to Ultima Thule? In 2006, a satellite was launched into space. Its name was New Horizon. Its mission was to record activities on Pluto and its moons.
NASA has received the first clear photo of Ultima Thule, the space rock beyond the orbit of Pluto, which was visited by a probe on New Year's Day. Scientists compared the previous images of the distant object to the new photo taken from a distance of 28,000 kilometres.
Meet Ultima Thule.
The new photos reveal the snowman shape and the reddish hue of Ultima Thule. As data continues to trickle in, the New Horizons probe is also scheduled to send pictures from a distance of 3,500 kilometres. Joining us now.
It is important to note that the New Horizon, its purpose was to capture and record images or data. As we consider the images that are obliquely opposite to Trump and the New Horizon, it is a picture of a man's face and a device that is directed to the moon. And as we flip and zoom in to this picture, we see the word written, facial recognition. So, what does satellites with the ability to record and send data and facial recognition has to do with the mark of the beast? And where does Trump fit in all of this? This will all make sense shortly.
The term Fourth Industrial Revolution is coined by Professor Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. He claims that the Fourth Industrial Revolution will be more profound than any prior period of human history. Industry 4.0 is a result of the fusion of technologies. The exponential growth of technological advances are merging the physical, digital, and biological worlds in ways that just decades ago was only possible in science fiction movies. Gene editing, new forms of machine intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, nanotechnology, and technologies such as blockchain and smart materials are profoundly changing the way we live, work, and relate to one another. Bernard Marr, author and speaker on business, technology, and big data, warns that the question is not if Industry 4.0 is coming, but rather how quickly it will arrive. As with big data and other business trends, he suspects that the early adopters will be rewarded for their courage jumping into this new technology, and those who avoid change risk becoming irrelevant and left behind. Connected machines and objects offer a great potential for a 4IR, and experts predict the number of connected devices that will be in use is estimated to reach 75 billion by 2025. The data obtained from these physical devices are then put through machine learning and artificial intelligence processes. As machines become more intelligent, humanity will also grow and become smarter.
Hello, global citizens. It is great to have you joining us. We are at UNTV for the next 45 minutes. My name is Femi OK. I am digitally curious about the conversation we're about to have about digital cooperation. Hashtag digital cooperation. If you're on Twitter, if you're online, use that. We will try and curate your comments, get them into this conversation with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. What kind of digital citizen are you, Secretary General?
Well, I have to say that after reading the report that was produced by our high-level panel on digital cooperation, that I believe has gathered the most diverse, the most competent and the most committed group of people that the UN has any time able to gather. After reading the report, I am enthusiastic about the enormous potential of the digital era. But I'm also enthusiastic about the capacity for us to bring people together, governments, the academia, businesses, the civil society, in order to address the risks and threats that also exist.
Well, nice job, Coach, at digital technology, what it can do for us, and also make it inclusive and also safe. That was the premise of why you got together and then you headed up this panel. When you were doing that, Melinda and Jack, how did you go about it?
Well, we had consultation from many people, even outside the panel, and then several panel discussions and meetings that came together where we talked about the disparate points of view. We talked about the incredible opportunities that technology gives us in the future to create the world that we want, a more just and humane world. And we also talked about some of the downsides. And we started to say, okay, what needs to be done so that we create the world of the future that we want? And I think at the end of the day, we realized that you have to have many diverse points of view and people at the table so that we are creating the future that we can imagine as far as we can see it for our society. But we don't yet have the right governance structure or institutions to really make sure that we use the most of that technology. When I was last in Africa, one of the things that I saw that kind of blew me away about how people were using the people who had smartphones, but even the people who had normal plastic phone, they're using WhatsApp in profound ways to go find piecemeal work or to sell their goods and services, even without a company being involved. So people are taking advantage of this, but as Jack says, we have to make sure that everybody has access to the digital rails.
Yeah. Secretary General, what are you most...
How is it possible that all 7 billion plus on the earth would have access to internet, even those who live in the most remotest part of the world?
Since the start of the space age, more than 8,800 objects have been launched into Earth's orbit. But in a few years, that number could increase significantly. Private companies plan to launch tens of thousands of satellites into space to beam internet to customers on Earth. Elon Musk's SpaceX alone has announced plans to launch 42,000 satellites as part of its Starlink internet project. If this happens, SpaceX will, by itself, be responsible for about a 5-fold increase in the number of spacecraft launched by all of humanity. Sputnik signaled the beginning of the space race, and since then we've been launching more and more objects into orbit. Now, companies such as SpaceX, Amazon, Telesat, and OneWeb want to launch thousands of satellites to make what they call megaconstellations.
A megaconstellation is a network that has hundreds or even thousands of satellites all orbiting and working together in a complete system. The reason that these companies are pursuing these megaconstellations comes down to essentially two factors. One is that the cost of hardware for these types of satellites has come down and they've shrunk in size considerably. And the second is because there's an increasing demand for data all around the world. So providing high-speed data to any point on Earth is an increasingly valuable asset.
Most internet satellites today operate in what's called geostationary orbit, which is around 36,000 kilometers above Earth's surface, and remain fixed on top of one area. But the satellite systems that SpaceX, OneWeb, Amazon, and Telesat are proposing will operate in what is called low Earth orbit, or between 180 and 2,000 kilometers above Earth's surface. In theory, this should cut down on the latency issues, with speeds up to 20 times faster than current GEO satellites. But to get the same coverage with LEO satellites, you need more of them.
The question should be asked, how does all of this tie into the mark of the beast? The Bible says that he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that have the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Could technology play a role in enabling the beast, in enforcing economic sanctions, empowering him to restrict those who do not receive his mark, sign, or standard? These forms of economic restrictions are not that far-fetched, as we have even today countries that we can use as templates as we seek to discover how the beast or the papacy will restrict all those who do not receive their mark, sign, or standards, and how technology will facilitate this.
They're constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now, the Chinese are also ranked, given a mark out of a possible 950 points. A score in the 700s is considered good. Around the 500 mark is not. For now, the number is a sort of bank credit rating, keeping track of everyone's spending habits.
I think being ranked is a good thing. A society has to have rules.
It forces us to be well behaved.
It may seem scary, but it's just like that here. We're used to it, and anyway, we don't have a choice.
But in an effort to keep all of its subjects in line, Beijing is taking the system a step further in 2020. It's aggregating data gathered by banks, private companies, and the state to rate if someone's a good or bad citizen.
By using the most data possible, the so-called big data, the system will play an important role in rebuilding a moral society.
The state will go over every detail of a person's life with a fine-tooth comb. Their financial situation, spending habits, career, even behavior on social media. Criticizing the government online or displaying outward signs of wealth is a no-no. On the other hand, praising the party or giving blood increases your social credit. Xiao Wenwang is a model citizen. She lives in Nanjing, a testing ground for social ranking. Married with a child, she has a job in a retirement home, no debts, and she wouldn't dream of jaywalking. A good score brings benefits, but people with low scores lose rights. The cinema names and shames people considered untrustworthy, plastering their details, even their addresses, across big screens.
It's a matter of principle. Those people have to be condemned.
Those people aren't honest, so they have to pay the price.
It's only right to pay your debts. You have to blacklist those that don't.
The Supreme Court has created a blacklist for so-called bad citizens, those whose ratings have dropped to 0. On it are companies, but also 23 million people to date. Among them is this journalist Liu Hu. He got a little too close to uncovering corruption among high-profile party members. After being sued for defamation by the subject of a story he'd written, he was blacklisted. But he only realized when he tried to buy a train ticket and was told he was banned from traveling.
That tells me I'm still on the blacklist.
Punished because he's been branded untrustworthy by the state.
Once you're blacklisted, you can no longer get a bank loan, start a business, buy an apartment. or even send your children to a private school.
Yu Hu is among a tiny minority of people who have dared to criticize the system, which some are calling a digital dictatorship.
I worry because I think many people like me will be deprived of individual freedoms, and all of us will live with restrictions of one kind or another.
After our meeting,
So here we see in China a template or example of what the future would look like when the mark of the beast is instituted, and all those who do not conform will be blacklisted and denied economic privileges. So added to these technical advancements, the Bible highlights another ace up the beast's sleeve that helps him to achieve his goal. And this we read in Revelation 13:13. He doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. This and the revelation of what the mark of the beast is will be revealed in our next video. Stay tuned.
America's vital interests in space lost out to special interests in Washington, except, of course, for the senators and congressmen here. They would never do it, right, Dana? But all of that is changing. We know that. My administration is reclaiming America's heritage as the world's greatest spacefaring nation. It is not enough to merely have an American presence in space. We must have American dominance in space. So important. Very important.